You ever seen a man smile? Not because he's happy, yeah, but because he finally doesn't give a damn. Picture this, a room full of suits, fake laughs, straight spines. And there I am, in the middle, painted face, bloody lips, smiling. Not there. Kind of smile, not the polite, practiced, I care what you think of me smile. No, mine was wide, honest, ugly. It made them uncomfortable. It made them twitch, because deep down, they knew I saw through their mask. And worse, I burned mine. You see, society doesn't hate monsters. It hates the ones who stop pretending they're not. They don't flinch at killers in suits. They flinch at a clown who smiles too freely. Because a man who stops caring what you think, that's the most dangerous man alive. You were trained, like a dog, to sit, to smile, to please. Be nice. Say sorry. Don't offend. They trained you to fear rejection more than silence. And you obeyed. You watered yourself down. You hid the parts that screamed. You tucked away the howl in your soul. And now you applaud quietly. You dream in grayscale. You laugh only when they say you can. All because you're terrified of being called too much, too loud, too angry, too real. Let me tell you something. The louder I laughed, the more they stared. So I kept laughing. Not because I needed attention, but because I didn't. And they hated that. They hated that their judgment didn't move me. That their silence couldn't shame me. That I walked through their world like it was already burning. Because in my mind, it was. They can't control the man who's done apologizing. They can't cage the beast that no longer needs their right. Permission to roar. So here's a little secret. When you stop caring what they think, you stop bleeding for their comfort. You stop shrinking for their approval. You stop dying for their applause. You stop being theirs. And you finally become yours. They don't need chains anymore. No bars, no guards, just a room full of eyes. And you'll build your own cell. Ever wonder how easy it is to control people without touching them? You don't need guns. You just need mirrors. Give them a reflection. One that whispers, "You're not enough. You're too weird. You'll never belong." And watch them destroy themselves from the inside. That's how they do it. They don't kill your body. They murder your mind. And you picked up the shovel. You buried your rage. You smiled when they lied. You nodded when you should have screamed. Why? Because you feared the eyes, the judgment, the whispers. You feared not fitting into their perfectly symmetrical little boxes. It started in childhood. Don't talk like that. Don't act like that. Don't dream too big. They don't want you free. They want you obedient. So they reward the polite, sheep, and punish the wild wolves. You ever seen a wild animal in a cage? It doesn't die all at once. It dies in silence, slowly, every time it forgets what the forest smelled like. That's you, caged by opinions, trapped in a prison with invisible walls. Look around. You scroll through life, counting likes, shaping your soul for validation. You hesitate to speak truth because it won't be relatable. You water down your pain because it's too dark. You hide your brilliance because it's too much. All while the real you, the unfiltered, fire-breathing truth of you, it sits shackled behind your smile. I broke my mirrors long ago. Why? Because their reflection wasn't mine. It was a weapon. It was designed to keep me tamed. But I am not tame, and neither are you. Every time you care what they think, you give them a piece of your voice. And soon, there's nothing left to say. They win, but the moment you say, I don't care if they laugh, I don't care if they leave, I don't care if they call me mad, you're not in the cage anymore. You're watching it burn, and the ones still trapped, they'll scream your name like it's a curse, but secretly, they'll envy your freedom. So ask yourself, do you want to be adored by prisoners or feared by your captors? Because freedom, it never comes dressed in approval. It comes with fire. They always watched me, not out of admiration. No, and it was fear dressed in politeness, the kind that smiles at you while locking the door behind your back. I remember the exact moment. It changed. It wasn't dramatic. No fireworks, no stage, just silence. And the sound of me snapping. Not in rage, not in chaos, but in clarity. You see, I had spent years performing, playing the role of the better man, apologizing for my rage, diluting my mind to make it easier to swallow, shrinking just to fit their comfort zones. Until one day, I walked into a room and didn't care who stayed, didn't fake a laugh, didn't nod at the lies, didn't wear the mask they stitched for me, and in that stillness, they noticed. It's funny. When you care what they think, they ignore you. But the day you stop, they panic. Suddenly, your silence is too loud, your truth too dangerous, because you're not playing the game anymore. And without your guilt, they can't control you. I remember looking someone in the eye, someone who once made me feel small. And I didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't bow. They spoke with polished words. I answered with honest madness. And the fear, it wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs. They were afraid, because I had nothing left to lose. No validation to chase, no applause to beg for, no fake friendships to maintain. That was the day I stopped caring. And strangely enough, that was the day they started watching like something sacred had snapped in me, something ancient, something true. You know what happens when you stop caring what they think? You become dangerous, unpredictable. You become yourself, unfiltered, untamed, unapologetic, and suddenly they can't use their tools against you. Shame won't work. Guilt won't hold. Judgment bounces off like rain on a fire. Because now, you've burned your script. You've left the stage. You're not acting anymore. You're real, and the world, it's terrified of the real ones. They don't know how to box us, market us, control us, so they gossip, they slander, they whisper. But deep down, they wish they had the spine to do what you just did. So let them talk. Let them whisper. Because every time they speak your name with fear, it means you're living louder than their silence. And in the ruins of their approval, you finally begin to rise. You ever seen a clown juggle fire while the crowd claps? They don't care if he burns. They just want a show. Welcome to the social circus, where they applaud your mask but crucify your truth, where they smile at your misery as long as it's dressed in manners. You post a picture of your pain, filtered, of course, and they double tap. But show them the raw wound, the real scream. Oh no, that's too much. That's attention-seeking. That's unstable. They don't want you healed. They want you quiet, dead inside, but pretty, numb, but functional. So they invented rules. Wear this. Say that. Don't be too loud. Don't be too angry. Don't make us uncomfortable. You know what that is? A funeral with confetti. They're not celebrating you. They're celebrating your compliance. And every time you shrink for them, they clap harder. They cheer for the version of you that doesn't exist. And you start to perform. You become the nice guy, the polite girl, the agreeable soul, trained like a circus animal. Do the trick, get the treat. Approval becomes your drug. Likes follows applause. Tiny hits of dopamine that keep you on the leash. And when you try to escape, they call you crazy, because the circus doesn't like escape artists. It prefers trained clowns. But what if you stop dancing? What if you let the mask fall? What if you walked into their ring, not to perform, but to burn it down? They'd scream, they'd hiss, they'd call you ungrateful, arrogant, insane, but deep down, they'd feel something they haven't felt in years. Envy. Because you dared to do what they never could. You killed the character they forced on you. You left the performance. You dropped the script. And you became terrifyingly real. You know why the Joker laughs at the world? Because it applauds pain and punishes authenticity. And when he stopped caring about the claps, he stopped dying for them. You want to know the real crime. It wasn't the chaos I caused. It was the silence I broke. The rebellion didn't start with fire. It started with a decision. I'm done. Done apologizing. Done shrinking. Done twisting myself into a shape they'd clap for. That's when the pain changed. It didn't vanish. It transformed from a cage into a weapon. Because the moment you stop caring what they think, you become something they can't touch, can't label, can't break. You become dangerous. You don't walk to impress, you walk to disturb. You don't speak to be liked, you speak to expose, and your existence becomes an act of defiance. That's what they fear the most. Not your violence, but your freedom, because a free soul is unpredictable, uncontrollable, unprofitable. That's why they want you tame, neat, docile. But now you're awake, and when the clown takes off the paint, they see the scars, not the smile. You don't need validation from a system built on illusions. Let the world misunderstand you. Let them mock you. Let them label you too intense, too sensitive, too much. Because in a world this numb, feeling deeply is rebellion. Caring less about their opinions and more about your truth. That's liberation. You're not crazy. You're finally clear. So stop chasing their approval. Start chasing your resurrection. Let their applause die in silence. And if you're watching this, if you've ever bent your back to be accepted, only to be discarded anyway, drop a comment. Tell your story. This is your final goodbye to the old you. Let the ashes speak and let the Joker disappear, laughing in the smoke.